All right, we're ready. The time is now 5:30. Yes, that's true. 5:31 p.m. on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. And this public meeting of the DC State Board of Education will come to order. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Director Butler, please call the roll.
Representative Bernstadt.
Present.
Representative Jones-Burgess. Representative Wages. Representative Washington.
Present.
Representative Williams.
Present.
Representative Chang. Representative Goulet.
Here.
Representative O'Leary.
Here.
Representative Henderson.
Here.
Representative Best. Representative Thompson.
Present.
Representative Reed.
Present.
Representative Patterson. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. A quorum has been determined. The State Board will now proceed with the business portion of the meeting. Members, we have a draft agenda before us. Are there corrections or additions to the agenda? All right, seeing no changes, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been, I have two of these, okay. It's been properly moved in second. The motion being, I will ask for the yeas and the nays, excuse me. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, motion is approved. We now have the minutes from our July 5th working session. Is there a motion to adopt these minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been properly moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, the motion is on the adoption of the July 5th working session minutes. I will ask again for yeas and nays. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion is approved. Good evening. My name is Ebony Rose Thompson, and I'm the Ward 7 representative and president of the DC State Board of Education. On behalf of the board and its members, I want to welcome our guests and the viewing public to our July public meeting. The State Board plans to continue this in-person posture for our public meetings. The board holds its regularly scheduled public meetings on the third Wednesday of every month at the Old Council Chambers at 441 4th Street Northwest. The meeting is being broadcast live via the District Knowledge Network. Before I discuss the items on this evening's agenda, I want to take some time to share a few updates and highlights from the past month. Since we last met, we have transmitted the State Board Seizure Safe Schools Resolution and Education Governance Report to the DC Council for consideration. The State Board staff kicked off an internal working group with the Office of the State Superintendent for Education staff to outline how we will review education standards moving forward. Lastly, SBOE leadership met with Deputy Mayor Kine to get updates on the boundary study, master facilities plan, and the transition of the Safe Passage program to the Public Safety and Justice cluster. This evening, the board will hear from 5 public witnesses. We look forward to hearing from you as you testify on creating an equity-driven dashboard of holistic metrics and dyslexia. We encourage the public to sign up every month to publicly share testimony. As a reminder, sign up closes 48 hours before the public meeting, and the link can be found at www.sboe.dc.gov. Our next public meeting of the State Board will be on September 20th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to turn to our State Superintendent, Dr. Christina Grant, for her remarks.
Wow, we'll be back in school and rocking and rolling for the next board meeting. It's happening so fast. Thank you, President Thompson, Vice President O'Leary, and members of the State Board of Education. I'm pleased to be with you all this evening and give you remarks on our shared priorities and our shared work. Today, I do want to provide updates from our July working session and on the social studies implementation before providing some additional personal remarks. At the board's July 5th working session, OSSI laid out a path for financial literacy standards and updating the categories and format of the DC school report card. Young people are on the precipice of adulthood, and they must gain an understanding of personal finance and economic systems. As our society grows, more impersonal and economic systems, opportunities, and threats become more globalized, it is more difficult and more important than ever that our students learn the fundamental financial skills to successfully navigate into adulthood. This is why we are pleased to share our decision to create standalone financial literacy standards with the board and the listening public this month. As we explained, we are excited that a terrific group of experts have agreed to support us in drafting financial literacy standards, including experts from Howard University's Center for Financial Excellence. We will continue to keep the state board and the public abreast of our progress on drafting these financial literacy standards. In addition, we shared our engagement plan for updating the DC School Report Card. For clarity, the DC School Report Card is housed on OSSI's website. It provides families with information about the district's public and public charter schools. It is not the report card you receive from your child from school and their academic progress. I was really pleased that the State Board and OSSI were able to align on our public engagement plan covering the months of September, October, and November, and we look forward to receiving written clarifications from the board by the end of this month. I am proud of the continued collaborative work of OSSI and the State Board and the work we endeavored to improve our social studies standards, and I'm heartened that our alignment around the DC School Report Card signifies a continued spirit of collaboration moving forward. I encourage everyone listening to visit ossi.dc.gov/DC School Report Card, reflect on improvements you would like to see and elements that you would like to keep, and participate in our survey or engagement sessions on the DC School Report Card in the coming months. I've had some sneak peeks. I think it looks really great. Turning now to social studies, I'm really pleased to be able to share that we are fully focused on implementing the district's newly approved social studies standards. Thank you again to this board, the public, and joint staff for your engagement on working on improving and approving our new social studies standards. And thank you for whoever provided me for this framed copy. I know it was someone over there. On July 5th, OSSI launched our Summer Social Studies Resource Institute with educators and curricular leads from across the district. Participants are working thoughtfully to identify additional materials and develop supporting curricular resources. We have convened experts from the Library of Congress, as well as social study and subject matter experts to support our educators. I'm excited to share that on July 24th, DC elementary educators will participate in OSSI's first elementary social studies coaching cohort. In addition, our media literacy coaching cohort will begin on August 7th, and we are working closely with a small cohort of educators and LEAs to pilot sample lessons based on standards 3.29, 4.16, 5.20, grade 6 geography, and grade 2 ancient history. So when people ask you if educators have the summer off, assuredly, we do not. We will continue to bolster our social studies professional development offerings and incorporate lessons learned from our engagement with district educators over the coming school year. And again, I'm really, really excited about the path and energy we're making toward implementation. And thank you again for your June vote. It makes all of this work in July possible. Before I close, I do want to share my appreciation for several of the individuals that the board will be honoring this evening. Serena was appointed as Ombudsman for Public Education in 2019, so she has been here the entire time I have been superintendent. Before being an ombudsman, she had done great work across government, and being an ombudsman is an extremely difficult job. You have to navigate bureaucracy, build relationships, show empathy, and produce results, and Ms. Hayes has done so magnificently. I am particularly proud of the partnership between OSSI and Ms. Hayes' office in establishing the DC Special Education Hub. The hub was established with OSSI's ESSER recovery dollars. It is a one-stop location to help families understand special education in the district by connecting them with tools, information, and support that they need so that they can make informed decisions and guide their students' learning. Serena was instrumental in this establishment. We would not have a hub without her. I want to congratulate her on her tenure as DC's Ombudsman for Public Education. I know that she'll continue to do great work for our children and our families in the district. Though I did not have a lot of time with Connie, I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge the legacy of work, service, and excellence that Connie Spinner has dedicated not just to adult education, but to the people of the District of Columbia. And that was plain for everyone to see when we first met. She's like, well, how old are you? And she said, but you're going to be great. And the grace and love and care that she shown all of us, we should all be so lucky. She's a driving force behind the establishment of the Community College Preparatory Academy, and through that, her legacy will continue to live on. I wish her family peace and some solace, and her memory will be with us for some time. On another note, I do want to acknowledge a very special representative that is going off to Harvard. Liz, I don't even know. You are an exceptional gift to Washington, D.C. You've been an exceptional gift to me and this board since I've joined here. Everything, you were appointed in 2022, hit the ground running. And I don't think most people, I think a big challenge we face is our ability to hear the voices of our students and trust the guidance that they give. And I think of our working session on social studies, and you know, the team, you know, you are lighting us up. You're like, no, let's not say and, let's say or. We do not have enough protests listed. We need these things. And walking you through your college application process, the highs and the lows, and then seeing the joy and excitement of getting the best choice. Harvard is lucky to have you, but Washington, D.C. is your home, and so we really expect you to come back. But congratulations on everything, from your Coca-Cola scholarship to being the 2023 National Urban League's Debater of the Year. No small feat there. We are so proud, I am so proud, and we are all still here, and so congratulations. Finally, I do want to end my remarks on a note to recognize an amazing member of OSSI's team who recently and suddenly passed away, Charlotte Nugent. Charlotte was a critical member of OSSI's team and my front team. She led the entire high-impact tutoring work of $41 million investment of this government to ensure that our children were able to have access to high-impact tutoring through the pandemic and hopefully beyond. She joined OSSI in October of 2021, and she quickly stood up a program that literally did not exist and has normed the need for high-impact tutoring throughout our entire district. She established goals, she designed the scope of our work, she launched each pillar of our investment strategy, and she hired every single member of our team. She stood up the entire program from scratch. It's a Herculean work, and Charlotte shouldered this burden with focus and determination that has made the success inevitable. And I can sit here today and say that not only will we hit the mark of serving 10,000 of our students with high impact tutoring, but we will exceed that mark. And this was all due to her unwavering work. She was an A&C commissioner at one point in her life, and she gave so much to our district. Her legacy lives on, and we will fight to continue her great work. She's also an amazing person. She was a former special education teacher. She was an Obama campaign staffer, an overall do-gooder and adventurer, many other words. She was also a beloved wife, a daughter, and a mother to her newborn son. We will miss her sense of humor, her passion for high-impact tutoring, and improving the education of all of our students. And much like her husband reminded us at her memorial, she lived a very full life and pushed us and me very, very hard to do right by all of our children. And so please join me for a moment of silence to honor Charlotte's memory. And thank you for letting me be with you all this evening.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Yes, it is night. Wow. Tonight, Dr. Grant. We appreciate OSSI's continued partnership on so many policy issues of importance to our students and schools. And we will see you again in September. Okay. We're going to move straight into public testimony. This evening, we will not be taking a break. What do you need from me? Thank you. We hear testimony from public witnesses at every public meeting, and your comments become part of our official record. If you would like to speak at a future public meeting, please sign up on our website at sboe.dc.gov or contact our staff by email at sboe@dc.gov or by phone 202-741-0888. Tonight, we have 5 individuals who submitted public testimony. We will hear from those in attendance in a single panel. Each witness will have up to 3 minutes to provide comments. Please note that you must use the microphone at the table, which is already on. The table timer will be green for the first 2.5 minutes, yellow for the last 30 seconds, and red after 3 minutes have lapsed. After our public witnesses speak, we will pause for questions from board members. Members also have 3 minutes for questions for public witnesses. Friendly reminder, those 3 minutes include question, comment, and any answers. Director Butler will call the public witnesses to the table and the question rounds. She will also assist with timing to ensure our witnesses and board members stay within their allotted time. Director Butler, you may ask the public witnesses to come to the table.
Grace Hugh. Samariah Nugent. Scott Goldstein. Sarah Cole. Armand Cervantes.
Armand is walking in now.
Is there? And we'll ask Armand to join once he walks in. We have a copy of Grace's testimony. She sent us an email saying that she would like for Representative Chang to read her testimony out loud on the record. And so we will get that, and we will start with Scott.
Okay, I should start. Good evening, members of the board. I'm excited to be with you today to resume the conversation on how OSSE can display important indicators of school quality on a public dashboard to promote equity in our schools and provide the public a fair, accurate, and holistic snapshot of public schools they may be considering in Washington, D.C. I know you will be examining this topic more in the fall, at which time you'll hear from many more educators, but we wanted to level set this conversation this evening where we left off over a year ago. This work is of incredible importance. While getting the accountability framework established in the step 1 was critical, there are still very important decisions to be made that can make or break whether this new school report card promotes an equitable school system or further entrenches and exacerbates current inequities. 2 years ago, EmpowerEd's equity team led a campaign to study, research, and recommend changes to the STAR framework, including how metrics should be publicly reported. We conducted a community survey by not only publishing a survey online, but going to major events throughout the city with pen and paper, carefully targeting to ensure representation from all 8 wards, a representative group of parents and families, translating for non-English speakers, and even doing oral surveys for those who could not read. With over 500 responses, we feel confident in our public engagement. Our educators took that feedback, combined with their own research and experience, and brought about recommendations. They included the use of a transparent and accessible dashboard that displays important metrics to parents and families, educators and students have expressed matter most to them. The top metrics were school culture and climate, specialized program like arts, STEM, and outdoors, parent and family satisfaction, staff and teacher retention, student safety and support for students with disabilities, and student satisfaction. 2, ensuring no summative score would be included on the report card or dashboard. First, let's be clear about the law. We are required to calculate summative scores for all schools and report out on the bottom 5%. That report can be posted anywhere and be cited to the U.S. Department of Education. We are not required to put that summative score on the school report card. Certainly not on the front page of a dashboard. Period, full stop. That is not the required law. You will hear a lot of equivocating or confusion on this point, but the law is clear. It's not required. Summative scores, whether stars, apples, grades, or 1 to 100 scores, are deceptive and perpetuate inequity. Anyone familiar with standards-based grading understands why. It's more helpful to tell a student or their parent that they're performing well in adding whole numbers, but need to grow in multiplication than to pretend multiplication and whole numbers are the same thing and average those skill assessments together. Summative scores are inherently subjective, distract from and undermine the work of targeted improvement, and perpetuate school segregation, no matter what form the summative score takes. As a reminder, while we need to calculate the summative scores, we do not need to post them on the report card. Number 3, having the largest, most visible measures on the dashboard align with what parents say they care most about. Number 4, focus on leading rather than lagging indicators. You can see my extended testimony a lot more about leading and lagging indicators, as well as the handout that I've given to all of you up there. We also need to focus on the audience for this, which is not just parents and families as a tool for school choice, but also for educators, students, and parents and families for school improvement. You can see a sample of what our team did 2 years ago on this poster in front of you, as well as the way we did public engagement by allowing people to choose what matters to them, and I hope you'll include those kind of techniques in your own engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Sarah Cole, and I'm an assistant principal of literacy at the Social Justice School, a public charter middle school in Ward 5, as well as an equity fellow with Empower Ed. For the last 2 years, the equity team has been diligently working to try to find ways to transform our public-facing school accountability system from one that is perpetuating harmful inequities into one that can actually empower schools and empower families. In the past, the DC school report card included a summative rating of stars based on various metrics. However, the rating was significantly influenced by student achievement on standardized tests and student attendance, 2 metrics we know are largely predictable by student zip codes. This means schools serving a larger population of students in underserved neighborhoods, most often Black and brown neighborhoods, predictably receive lower star ratings. In our advocacy, our equity team fought to minimize these biased measures and instead amplify growth measures for test scores and attendance. Unfortunately, while some shifts were made to the summative rating formula, the formula still prioritizes these biased measures. As a result, I strongly urge members of the board to reject any proposal for the new dashboard that includes the summative score. It is misleading. Research shows that school rating sites based largely on achievement scores instead of growth metrics lead to resegregation of communities and underfunding of schools serving high-need communities as parents avoid those schools altogether. We should not punish schools for doing the crucial and good work of serving students from underserved communities. We cannot include the summative rating on the dashboard. The Empower Ed team furthermore believes it is crucial to design with and not for community members, and so it was a priority for us to go into the community and ask folks what it is they want and need from a site sharing information about schools. After showing up at community events, school dismissals, and other places throughout DC, we had the opportunity to survey over 500 community members. In addition to this survey, we had a board where we allow folks to choose from 27 different options what they would want to be the priorities of factors included on the website, and the results were really resounding. Out of the 27 options, standardized test scores ranked the 25th most important to community members. The results were clear. Families want to know about the experience of school and not just the outcomes. In the survey, community members advocated for prominently including metrics like climate survey results, parent-family satisfaction, support for exceptional learners, and teacher retention. As a school leader, I want families, my staff, and leadership team to be able to easily access data that shows whether or not we are living up to our mission. For example, as the Social Justice School, how many of our students are receiving opportunities to engage in expeditions or projects connected to social justice, like our 7th graders who studied social epidemics and applied their learning to develop and present youth-centered ideas to prevent gun violence right here in DC in front of the Wilson Building. This is the kind of information families want to know in order to determine whether or not a school is a good fit for their child, who is so much more than a test score or behind in a seat. Based on this survey and our results, please, we urge you to support a dashboard that prominently displays parent and family satisfaction, teacher and staff retention, and these measures I have already named so that we can make precise decisions as school leaders and informed decisions as parents. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Sorry I'm late. My name is Armand Cuevas. I live in Ward 1. For those who don't know me, I taught at a DCPS high school for 5 years, and subsequently I was an administrator at a DC charter school the year after. Currently, I plan to return to the classroom. So I'm here to advocate for a more comprehensive school dashboard and removing that singular rating, because I believe in equity at our schools at all levels to give the community, parents, teachers, students, a fair and holistic understanding of our schools. So when I was teaching, I slowly realized the problem with grades. They boiled all our students' efforts down to a single number with little nuance. What if the student doesn't test well, but they are really good at participation and classwork? What if they have a good grasp of linear equations, but struggle with exponential? What if they struggle with exponential, but eventually mastered it, and with extra guidance and coming to office hours? In my final 2 years of teaching, I tried really hard to switch to standards-based grading, and it wasn't perfect, but it was ultimately better for the students because they saw class as a combination of various skills. They knew what to work on and how to raise their grade. They were able to see what they were doing well on. If this kind of approach works in the classroom, we should be doing this on a broad scale as schools. The same can be said for managing adults and employees. Impact, unfortunately, boils down a teacher down to a single number and is similarly problematic to the star rating. However, at my previous charter school, evaluation of employees was not numeric, but instead nuanced with areas of strength and growth. The employees I managed and myself in regards to my own supervisor, we didn't feel any sense of anxiety or a dehumanizing number that was attached to us. We knew our strengths, where we needed to focus on and grow, and it was a healthy way to grow in a workplace. The star rating leads to all sorts of snap judgments that eventually get tied up with racism and classism. I see this with DC parents or even friends and family back home in California. They see a low school rating and then tie that to the racial and economic makeup of the students. We need to move away from this single rating and give the public a dashboard so they can fairly judge a school on what people truly deem as important, whether that be staff retention, school culture and climate, parent and family satisfaction, and so on. I don't think the public is truly clamoring for a single rating. After all, nobody rates a city on a single scale. Lists come out daily that rate cities on things like cost of living, safety, health outcomes, and so on. We are lowering the standards for the public's understanding of schools when we should be raising them. We need to rework school ratings and move toward a dashboard model so we can move forward towards equity and liberation for our students, our families, despite living and working in a historically racist and classist system.
Thank you all for your testimony. We will now begin with our questions from members. Representative Bernstadt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your testimony. I have 2 questions, I think. Mr. Goldstein, can you just explain what you mean? Maybe you explained it, I just didn't connect that this is what you're talking about, but what you mean by focus on leading and not lagging indicators?
Thank you for the question. So I didn't fully get to this part of the testimony. So displaying lagging indicators, things like test scores, they show parents and families where school was or has been, and then condemn them essentially to stay there. So more prominently displaying leading indicators. So if you have the lagging indicators, parents will look at that and say, that might even be data from 3 or 4 years ago, right? Because if you're measuring a graduation rate, that could have to do with how a student performed as a freshman, right? So lagging indicators are looking at where a school was. A leading indicator, which can be a lot of different things. People use things like parent and staff surveys, educator retention, sometimes things like attendance, or even benchmark assessments if you want to use assessment data. They tell you reliable. These are not guesses about where a school might be, right? These are reliable, research-designed indicators that show where a school is going based on the data. We know if a school has certain attendance rates, certain engagement rates, students, certain teacher and principal retention, they are very likely to be here in a year, right? Using those indicators perpetuates cycle of investments in the school rather than cycles of disinvestment in the school.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. This next question, I think y'all could all answer, but Ms. Cole, you talked about it more. First, you know I love the social justice school. I think it's an amazing school. So thank you for coming and testifying. But could you talk more, so you talked about like what good community engagement looks like. Is there anything that you think like worked particularly well, like one thing the board should try and pull out, and anything you think maybe we should not do moving forward that could be most helpful?
Yeah, I think what's most important is finding ways to go to where people are rather than trying to have people come to you and fill out something that you like or have to go to your website. So identifying community events where you know there will be lots of people. We have tons of festivals all the time here. We have tons of back-to-school events and things like that. So going to where we know parents and families will be, that was, I think, one of the most effective ways that we were able to really gather a robust amount of input from community members.
Okay, of course.
Just wanted to say, when we did the survey, we went to street vendors, for example, in Ward 1 that are in front of the Columbia Heights shopping mall, and we read them the survey for people who could not read the survey themselves. We read them the questions, we marked down their answers. We went to dozens of community events that happened in September, all the back-to-school bashes, all the community events. It was a good time for it. But you have to think about the people who are most inaccessible, who are least likely to answer, and then specifically go to them.
Okay. Thank you all so much for your testimony and answers.
Representative Washington.
Hi, thank you guys for your testimony again. I have a question for Mr. Cuevas. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but anyone can answer. You talked about a strengths and growths model, like moving away from statistics. Well, not statistics, but you know what I'm saying. So in an ideal model like that to be implemented in the dashboard, is there a set of criteria or like differing set of criteria that you think the schools would be equally evaluated on or should be equally evaluated on?
Can you repeat the last part one more time?
Is there a set of criteria that you think the schools should be equally evaluated on? Because like underneath of that strengths and growths criteria, if that makes sense, like would each school have a different set of strengths and growths being displayed, or would it be like a universal set of criteria, and then what would that ideal criteria be?
I think in terms of what is displayed, I think keeping it as neutral as possible. Like this is, like, it would already be decided like what is displayed on this dashboard, and then it would just be like, this is attendance. It's not gonna be like, this is an area of growth. It would be like, this is the attendance, and people can take what they will from it.
Okay.
Whether it's attendance or assessments or things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll let anyone else answer if they have more details for that.
That was it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Reed.
Thank you. Good evening. It's good to see you all here and excited that you all brought this back. I was able to see this in action during, I think, the Ward 6 Mutual Aid event, my first year on the board. My follow-up question to this work, because I do know you all got a huge pool of folks to contribute and provide information about indicators. I'm curious about the meaningful differentiation piece, knowing that that is the reason why I have a feeling the piece about why they have to show the summative score, that was probably going to be used. What is your response in relation to the meaningful differentiation of schools, even though we might have differing opinion about like, is that actually useful, but just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll just say I've read this page of the law many times to try to figure out exactly what is the law and what is not the law. So meaningful differentiation is there. You have to do it, which is why I say you do have to calculate all the schools, not just the bottom 5%, because you have to be able to compare the schools and do meaningful differentiation. But just because you have to do that, there is nothing on that page or any surrounding page that says it has to be displayed in a particular place, right? That work has to be done, it has to be reported. So yes, you have to compile a PDF of every school's score, the meaningful differentiation, the bottom 5%, what you're gonna do to support them, and submit that to the Department of Education. You do not have to put that on any public-facing dashboard or school report card in any way. That's not part of the law. It's been interpreted to be part of the law because people will say we should be transparent about it. I would say it's actually the opposite of transparent, right? What you're doing is reducing complex things to something very simplistic. I love the example Armand gave about cities, right? We don't say Washington, D.C. is a B and Philadelphia is a C, right? We look at each measure. So we should absolutely be transparent about the measures and where schools score on the measures that we choose and put that all forward. But to average them together is actually not being transparent about strengths and weaknesses.
Anyone want to add anything? No? Okay, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Representative Goulet.
Thank you all. This was really helpful, and I'd love to be able to get a picture of the presentation here if possible. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, I guess. I'm trying to read it from here. So I'd love to see that. But I think you guys made some really good points. We're trying to look at this right now as we do the boundary study, talking with parents about things that they care about. And I would love to get kind of your results of your survey, if you don't mind sharing it, because that's important to me, is what the parents who are trying to make a choice about the best school for their kids want to see on a website that's useful for them. I'll tell you some of the things that people have mentioned to me. Ward 3, the overcrowding issue comes up over and over again. Everyone you talk to, it's overcrowding. If you have a child who is of pre-K 3 and 4 age, that's something that they mention, is do you have pre-K 3, do you have pre-K 4 at your elementary school? Other issues you mentioned, which is going to be very important for me, I think cross purposes with this and the boundary study, is what are we doing to ensure inclusive education in our elementary schools, in our middle schools for youth with disabilities in our community? And that should be a metric that's reported for families. Are we not only providing the services, but do we have evaluations, and then do we have the ability to serve a range of kids 1 through 4 with educational needs in their neighborhood school? And that should be on the dashboard. And then, just looking at teacher stability, I know that's something you've talked a lot about, Scott, and your whole organization, is if you have a workforce that is dedicated, stays at the school, and is there without a lot of turnover, you're going to have improved results. So I think all that factors into it, and I'm really excited to see kind of what you'd recommend for putting up metrics. I do want to emphasize, I think we need to have something where parents can look at it, though, and be able to, with each of the metrics, weigh it versus other schools. I like data, even if the data sometimes isn't useful, but I hear what you're saying, though, about how if you look at test scores, it's going to track poverty. It's going to be measuring poverty in a lot of cases, not necessarily the performance of the school in educating kids. So I'm just excited to work with you all. I'll leave 45 seconds if any of you want to say anything, but thank you all for coming in. This is really very helpful.
Yeah, that image, the survey results, and all of that is at supportnotstars.com.
Okay.
You can get all of that data as well as what's displayed here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Yeah. Hello. Good to see you all. I appreciated the framing of bringing this conversation around the school report card back to our attention. I want to also remind the board that, in the previous work, and as Representative Patterson has said, we've done a lot of work on this already, and in Resolution 22-1, we already recommended the elimination of a single summative rating of schools. So, and that was, I think, an 8-1 vote, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, what you're saying has already been consistent with what this body has done in previous iterations. I was curious and definitely think that it's really important that there are school climate measures. And was just curious if you had any thoughts on the form that could take, outside of surveys, or surveys our best tool for being able to get the pulse of a school's climate.
I think that surveys are a good measure to get a good broad view, but student focus groups where you can target especially students who live on the margins, so students with disabilities, students who may be coming from low-income families, the students who we know are often traditionally underserved. Those types of focus groups can be really insightful to understand how those most marginalized are being impacted by a school system. I would also, I would strongly recommend the tech street data, which recommends a lot of different ways to approach measuring a school quality outside of just standardized test scores, in ways that will lead to more equitable outcomes for students and experiences for students.
And I'll add, on our site, we actually have a research review of all the research that demonstrates that staff surveys are an effective leading indicator of school growth, of academic achievement, from people like Kraft and Pape, Ronald Ferguson, Eric Hirsch, John Safier, and all of their research links linked on the site about why that's an effective indicator.
Thanks. And while y'all are here, I'll use my last question. At our last working session, Representative Chang had kind of mentioned the importance of having an issue-oriented approach to state board engagement. Do you have any suggestions for how the state board can best engage the public in the fall, like in terms of timing or location, or just ways to really make sure that we're being intentional about how we connect with the public?
Good teaching is good engagement. This is interactive. It's what you would do with a class when you're trying to do good teaching. Don't talk to people, make it interactive, yes. Rather than this is a state board focused session, it should be this is a thing about the school report card. The more it's targeted, the more you can get out people who care about something and make it interactive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Henderson.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for the extensive engagement that you bring to this topic. And something that Ms. Cole mentioned has me thinking about, I imagine that there's a lot of value in having a standard, having the dashboard standard, so each school has the same stuff on it and you're comparing side by side. But Ms. Cole, you mentioned like your school has specializations and there are different metrics that are important to you. What would you say about like dedicating space on a dashboard to metrics that are chosen by the school that might not be standard across all schools?
Yeah, I think that so in our survey, something that we found that was important to families was being able to determine in what ways students will experience a well-rounded education. And so having a space where schools can be able to identify the types of special programs that exist there and the percentage of students who actually are able to participate in those programs, so that, again, it's about equity. Like, it's great if you have this program, but are students actually accessing it? Like, that's important. I think the special programs or well-rounded education could be the standard feature, but the information that populates would be specific to each school, and the data that's connected to that information would obviously be specific to each school.
Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts on that for Scott or Armand?
Yeah. I had a meeting today with the CEO of Outteach, which does design for school gardens and other school outdoor spaces, and they mentioned to me that on the school profiles, it says science lab, yes or no, on the current DCPS school profiles, but if you have an outdoor science lab, that's what they build, is essentially science labs that happen outdoors, that wouldn't be included in that metric. So letting schools show what they actually do with things like that, I think is very important.
I'm really interested in the value of focus groups. Like, I think, Ms. Cole, what you described sounds extremely valuable. I wonder how, like, what's the check against schools selecting their focus group, to be more likely to give a certain outcome, if that makes sense. Like,
I don't know. I'll mention that I know that Dr. Reed and some others went to Anacostia and Ballou, and I think, just like this is a general assembly, students are all welcome. This is not like, please give us 5 students, which often you get the same 5 students.
I think also being really clear on, especially if you are hoping to target students who exist at the margins, being really clear on what those identity markers are that you might be interested in, so that schools can't get around that, so that you really are targeting the perspective that you're hoping to be able to capture is important.
Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? I think also there just needs to be like an incentive for students to come to these things and join focus groups, because for them they're giving up their time to like do something else. So I think there needs to be clear, like, especially if they're new to it or they're unfamiliar, they need that kind of extra push. I think that's just the reality of how people operate.
Thank you. Representative Chang.
Thanks, everyone. First, just want to acknowledge the seriousness of Grace Hu's written testimony, and which is uploaded on the DC SBOE website, and about which I'd ask my colleagues to read thoroughly and carefully and add as a point for our next working session. Mr. Goldstein, I have would you remind me how your ideal dashboard would share standardized test information?
So one of the 6 metrics that we recommended was student growth, correct? I think that's on there. And so that would be one of them. I do think proficiency is important. I wouldn't say you shouldn't talk about proficiency or we shouldn't look at proficiency. I mean, the goal is every student should be proficient, right? But what we display to the public and how we display it to them incentivizes or disincentivizes cycles of inequity and investment in schools. And so in terms of what is on the report card, I think we have to be careful about how we display those things. So I do think assessments matter, and I think benchmarks assessments can also be leading indicators if they're not final assessments or lagging indicator assessments from years ago. So it's not to say that there shouldn't be any assessment data as part of this, but being careful about how we display it in a way that makes it leading indicators that are accurate about where a school is now, not where it was a year or 2 ago.
And for all 3 of you, since I think you've helped families, I'm answering my own question, but would you nod yes or no if families have come to you in the past to help navigate the system that exists today and make sense of it? And what are some of the ways that they frame the questions to you when they ask about it?
Give me a second.
I mean, I know that I had neighbors, especially at I lived by Kennedy Street previous to this, and I had a lot of neighbors in the same block who cited the star rating of the school that was down the street from us as a reason to move. And I mean, within a year, I think there were 3 people on our block of about 10 houses that actually cited that when they talked about leaving. They're like, this is a 1-star, 2-star school. It was actually a 4-star school 2 years later. And I think that's indicative to me of the problem of lagging indicators, right? People are looking at that single measure and saying, like, I shouldn't even search for a real property.
And I think my question is more around, with any model, how do we build navigation services around it?
Yeah.
Because even this is people are going to have questions about it, and how do we make sense of what it all means, right? So my question is more about, in the current way that things exist, how do families that you work with make sense of what any of it means?
So a lot of conversations I'll have with students and a few families is they'll ask, is blank a good or bad school? It's just blank point period, and I always just ask, what does good mean? What does bad mean? And then they start to think more about it, and I think that's the kind of way to extend that further than just 1-star, 2-star, 5 stars, good or bad, into oh, well, actually this school has a really good Black Studies program, so actually when I send my kid to this school, vice versa.
Thank you.
Time has expired. I'm sorry. Representative Patterson.
Thank you, Director. And I apologize for my tardiness. On the report card, we all know we have a very bifurcated ecosystem, so to speak, between the charters and additional schools. And we also know that they both have their own accountability framework. I know for the foreseeable future right now, they both are going to do what they're going to do. One has tiers, the other one of what we design. I would like to ask you guys, how do we kind of going forward, because we know we're going to work on this in the fall, but how going forward do we bridge those gaps? Because I believe a lot of parents, they look at tiers for charter schools, what the school is tiered. They look at whatever we're going to do, previously stars, at what those schools are. If I could just hear some of your suggestions of how we start to bridge that gap so parents are looking at one type of system, because I know right now, even when we do this work, charter schools are going to do what they want to do because their charter is based on their tiering. So that's what they deem important. So yeah, they'll get stars or whatever, well, not get stars, but get something. But what they're going to really look at is what their charter says. So if you could give me some suggestions as a state board member trying to make sure we have a uniform, unconvoluted system that works for parents instead of just operators, what that would look like.
2 things I want to mention real quick. One is that the report card will apply to both sectors, right, and not just to the charter. So the tiers will still exist, and the new school accountability framework that PCSB is developing now will exist, but this will be the only one that's across both sectors. So I would say the way to do that is make it the best site. Make it the most interactive, the most user-friendly, right? If this is the best site for information, it will supersede sites that don't give as good information. So I would say that first. Second is make this not the end of your journey. Once a really good dashboard is complete, it has to be tied to supports. That's why I say support, not stars, right? So we even talked about council legislation that could potentially tie future funding, in some ways outside the formula, like grant opportunities that come federally, to areas where you show weakness on a dashboard. So think about the support part next. And if this is tied to supports, the dashboard that you have, specific targeted supports, it could be hugely impactful for schools.
Any other comments? Thank you. Go ahead.
I think also just leaning into social media. A lot of parents and students thrive on there, especially more and more nowadays. So to lean into that, like maybe it might be gimmicky sometimes, but maybe the gimmickiness can be something to grab their attention and then link them to the actual website where it can be further in detail and like give the families and students what they really want to know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for your public testimony today. We really appreciate all the remarks you had to bring. Oh. I know, I'm sorry, I'm looking right at them and I'm missing it. I have a whole list in front of me. Representative O'Leary.
I thought I was being ostracized. I have a couple of sort of technical questions. Is there any movement in the public and charter schools to find out what a student's reading level is at the beginning of the school year? And could you answer, and I'll get you the next question in a minute.
I think depending on the school, they'd either do like SRI or MAP testing, but yes, there is. Or other things. I don't know all the acronyms for different schools, but yes.
Because that sort of moves into growth. I always felt that it was important to test students at the beginning of the year, and then I would do that in the middle of the year and at the end of the year, and the growth was, but it never showed up on the star rating, which is not right. The other question is, and Ms. Hughes' testimony today was about DCPS has decided not to replace computers in the schools, not to upgrade the computers. How do you all feel about that?
Most recently taught in DCPS.
I think that's horrible because technology is the future, it's the present, and in order for everyone to be functioning as an adult, or even just now, they need to have updated systems. The school that I worked at, the tech team was overworked, always busy, really old technology, and it was just really hard for them to get the funding needed and get the support needed in order for teachers to actually have like laptops in their classroom. Like we had to like, not physically fight, but we had to like be strategic on when to request laptop cards and how to talk to that person so that way we can get the laptop cards. And it was more of a headache than it should be in 2020 or 2021 or whenever that was.
I'll add that, we do educator wellness partnerships with schools and we make educator wellness plans for the school. And you might be surprised or maybe not how often it comes up basic things like we don't have laptops for our class, and if we did, my wellness would be better. Thinking of a middle school, Ward 3 we're working with it, where this was a key element of their plan, which was like, can we have our own laptop carts because there's not enough to go around. And the impact of taking away small frictions, like I don't have laptops and I have to negotiate with the person next door, or there's not enough paper in the copier, those are the things we get a lot, and we could, small wins, just take care of these easy things that are stressors.
It just is amazing that this news has just come out that DCPS is going to do that. One other thing, when I was at Cardozo, we had two academies, a construction academy and a trans tech academy, now Trans STEM Academy. And they were very successful. Students came from all over the city, but it never showed up on the report card. I know that I am out of time, but I just wanted to throw that out. Thank you.
President Thompson.
Thank you all for hanging out with us in July. I have one comment and one question. My comments, I believe we've already had a bit of conversation about following up on the digital equity testimony. So we'll That it should be in everyone's emails, and we'll try to get some better information as a follow-up. My question is actually about the school support. So many states that have the types of grant programs that encourage schools to take certain actions, they're not necessarily always tied to the ESSA accountability framework. Most of them are actually tied to like actually graduate profiles. Like, what do we want to see in our students? Do you all see any? Do you all see any daylight sometimes between like what we ask of schools or what we want to see at the end of the day in students, and like, are there other things we should think about too, as far as like how we're best supporting our schools?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, I think that there are probably things outside of what we might find in a graduate profile that could become areas in which schools need additional support. For example, if a school, and I know many schools struggled with this post-pandemic, was really struggling with high suspension rates, being able to have support in how to incorporate restorative practices in your school such that you can reduce those suspension rates would be one example of like an area of a school that isn't necessarily in a graduate profile, but that a school might need help in, and it would make sense. We have that data. We could easily identify the schools that could use additional resources in that area, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly.
Say too that I know this is part of our ESSA requirement, but it doesn't make sense to me to say these are the bottom 5% of schools, this is the blanket kind of support these schools are going to get, and that if a school that's not outside of that bottom 5% that has particularly bad teacher retention, we're not going to give them support to go get some programming to help them with that. Or they have particularly bad attendance, we're going to give them support specifically to address that. I think we need to be more targeted in how we spend our money, and I think it should be tied to holistic metrics like these.
Thank you. I guess I'm asking because schools and students aren't interchangeable. Like, there could be needs that students have that don't necessarily show up at the school level, and so I guess that's why I'm asking, like, what would be the gap? Where would the gaps be? Not necessarily should we support schools or not, but thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony again this evening. We welcome any public testimony from the public. At this time, I'll turn the meeting back over to our president.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank all our public witnesses for their comments tonight. We sincerely appreciate it. At this time, we're going to move on to our administrative votes for the evening. We have two state resolutions. For the state resolutions, I will look for a motion and a second for each state resolution, which will be followed by Director Butler reading each into the record. Once the resolution is read into the record, I will turn to our student representatives to share the Student Advisory Committee statements. This will be followed by member discussion in 3-minute rounds of statements before roll call votes are conducted. We will first move on to State Resolution SR 23-5 on ensuring safe and reliable transportation for students with disabilities. Is there a motion? Okay, I heard a motion from Representative Goulet. Is there a second?
Second.
I heard a second from Representative Patterson. Director Butler, please read the resolution into the record.
State Board of Education resolution on ensuring safe and reliable school transportation for students with disabilities, SR 23-5. Whereas the DC State Board of Education is committed to ensuring all transportation eligible public school students in DC have equitable access to busing to and from their school, and that transportation is essential for students being present to receive a high-quality education. Whereas on December 9th, 15, 2012, after 17 years of federal court supervision over DC's Special Education Transportation Program and provider payments, a federal judge dismissed the Petties v. DC litigation, a class action lawsuit regarding reliable transportation for DC's 3,200 special education students and timely payments to non-public and related service providers funded by the district. Whereas special education transportation is one of the services featured on the signed individual education program IEP documents of eligible students as agreed by the parents or caregivers of a student and the school district under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and transportation access is an essential component of education equity. Whereas the Office of the State Superintendent of Education is responsible for providing transportation to all eligible special needs students across DC. Whereas at the State Board's May 10, 2023 working sessions, member discussed the need for urgent action on school busing issues in DC, describing delayed pickup times, workforce challenges, and timely reimbursement for families of students with disabilities impacted by late or no-show buses. Whereas the State Board has heard from 2 public witnesses, a student with autism and his mother, at the March 15, 2023 public meeting, who provided testimony urging for increasing the 3-minute window allowed for students to board their bus and improving the consistency of pickup and drop-off times. Whereas for the school year 2022-2023, OSSI was unable to provide timely and safe transportation services to every student with special needs. Whereas late and canceled buses caused students to miss class time and forced parents and guardians to make arrangements on extremely short notice to get their children to school. Whereas the State Board commends OSSI and Mayor Muriel Bowser for funding a $2,500 employee attendance incentive for school bus drivers, holding hiring fairs to address shortages of bus drivers, increasing the reimbursement rate for families can receive for arranging alternative transportation, creating a division of student transportation resource kit and website to communicate bus delays to students and parents, and for delivering improvements to on-time arrivals during the last few months of the school year 2022-23. And whereas parents and caregivers paid out of pocket to get their children to school and were made to wait at least 30 days for reimbursement, and in many cases much longer. Now therefore be it resolved, the DC State Board of Education calls on OSSI to improve its special education transportation program's performance in school year 2023-2024 to avoid any risk of entering a new court order receivership by taking immediate action on the following 8 recommendations. 1, dedicated resources to ensure a fully staffed program with properly trained and vetted bus drivers when the school year 2023-2024 begins. Promptly reimburse families for transportation expenses they incur when a bus route was delayed or canceled and alternative transportation was required. Work with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer to develop an improved electronic process for reimbursing parents, guardians, paying out of pocket to transport their children to school. Implement an application to allow parents and students to track buses so they know when they are arriving or not. Number 5, consider increasing the wait time for students to 5 minutes so fewer students are left outside the bus services as challenges arise. 6, create calendars to be shared directly with parents, guardians, and students receiving transportation services that clearly communicate when OSSI will or will not be providing transportation services before the beginning of the new school year so families, caregivers, and students can make alternative arrangements. 7, host listening sessions with families impacted by the school year 2022-2023 delays to learn about any further concerns prior to the start of the school year 2023-2024. And 8, host listening sessions with bus drivers to receive suggestions and feedback prior to the school year 2023-2024. And be it finally resolved, extended school year planning should be made public earlier so families, caregivers, and students are able to plan accordingly.
Thank you, Director Butler. Is there a SAC statement?
Because of the times of the SAC meeting, there is not, but I will note that the SAC did unanimously agree that this is something that the board should adopt in terms of changing wait times, as according to Tyler and Yolanda Corbett's testimony, and we did talk about it after the March public meeting.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the resolution?
I do.
I see Representative Henderson. I heard, okay, Representative Patterson and then Representative O'Leary. Vice President O'Leary, excuse me.
Thank you, Representative Goulet, for moving this forward. I just want to underscore how disruptive it is to families when transportation is late or canceled, when communication is inconsistent and not clear. This is something that we have to fix. I appreciate how constructive this resolution is with recommendations. I think we have a lot of clarity on what the problems are and how to address them, and just hope that we will see the political will and resources to make sure that we get this right, and we don't find ourselves continuing in this unacceptable state as the next school year begins. And I would suggest that we ask the council to hold a hearing on this sometime soon.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you. I was just making sure. First, I want to just really thank my colleagues for doing this. I think, you know, all of us were moved when Yolanda Colbert came here and her son testified, as Representative Barstead has talked about. And the unfortunate thing is that the very next morning, she texted me because he had been left again. And then I tweeted it out, and it made some people mad, because it's like you're putting us out you're blasting us out, and we're trying to solve the problem. But that's what we do. I think that's what we're elected to do, is to elevate those voices, and then speak to it even when it's not popular, even with our sister organization, OSSI, because we put it out there like that. I didn't want to put them out on Front Street, so to speak, but it was needed because this needed to be done. So I just wanted to say I appreciate all the colleagues up here to make sure that we use whatever we have available to elevate the voices of students like Yolanda's son, and that we continue to do things like this even when it's not popular for other people, because it becomes political and it's too visible, but that we continue to represent them well. So thank you all for following up with this and doing the right thing for the students and the parents.
We, this fabulous resolution advises the council to act on this problem with immediacy. We don't have that kind of power because if we did, we could just say, make this a law and get it done, and it would be done. But this is, I just want the public to think about how personal this is for a parent of a child with a disability, and it's not taken care of. And the accountability for the people in charge of our government should be more important than anything else. Just to reemphasize what Representative Patterson's saying, we're not up here to try to please the people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. We're trying to get the things done that need to be done.
Was there further discussion? Representative Goulet.
I just want to thank all of my colleagues here for the support on this, and then also thank OSSI for working constructively with us. We put the resolution out. They gave us feedback. I think it improved the resolution. And I would like to commend them for the progress they've made from January until now. But I think there's some real warning signs out there still. The staffing level that they have right now is still low, and they're still trying to hire, but it's a lot lower than it was before when we exited Petty's based on the number of kids. And I'm really worried that when cold and flu season hits again in the winter, that we're going to be back to where we are. And we just simply can't be back to this point again. So I want to echo what Representative Henderson said. I think the council does need to hold a hearing on this. I think we need to stay on top of this, because the risk we run if our constituents are poorly served again, if their schedules are interrupted, if kids are denied the ability to learn on time, is that in a city of lawyers, we're going to be back in receivership on this program. And then we lose our autonomy, we lose our local control of this program. So it really is essential that OSSI make sure they have the right staffing, the staffing's properly trained, and that we don't go backwards on this program. We need to build on the improvements they made near the end of the school year, but make sure that when you're going to have seasonal flu, that we've got enough people that we can cover all these routes. And I think we just need to stay vigilant on this issue. I want to thank everybody and thank OSSI for their work so far, so we'll keep on it.
Did I miss anyone on discussion? Okay. I want to thank Representative Goulet for taking the time to synthesize all the thoughts of the resolution. And I want to thank the members for hearing the people who came and both testified in this space and reached out to us about their concerns, whether it be you heard them at ANC meetings, or the Corbett's who showed up in front of us, or the people who tweeted at all of us to let us know what the state of service was currently. I also appreciate the things that are noted that have helped make progress. I hope we continue to see some of those actions, like the hiring fair, like cutting through the red tape to get people hired, like looking at like what the bonuses are, and those will take commitments that go beyond OSSI to ensure they continue. We also need to probably call out the OCFO at some point around their reimbursement, because they're the ones that are holding up the dollars for parents. And that matters a whole bunch. And so I am happy to close discussion on this and look toward a vote on the resolution. And we will, once we have it, of course, we will share it in all the places it needs to be shared, and everyone who needs to be called to action. So seeing no further discussion, the motion is to adopt SR 23-5. Director Butler will call the roll.
Representative Bernstadt?
Aye.
Representative Washington?
Aye.
Representative Williams?
Aye.
Representative Chang?
Aye.
Representative Goulet?
Aye.
Representative Henderson?
Aye.
Representative Reed? Aye. Representative Patterson?
Aye.
Vice President O'Leary?
Aye.
President Thompson?
Aye.
President Thompson, the vote has passed with a vote of 8.
Perfect. Thank you, members. Next, we will vote on State Resolution SR 23-8, appointing Tony Kreiner interim ombudsman for public education. I guess I'll move this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to give it to Representative Reed because I think Representative Patterson got the last one. So no rock, paper, scissors necessary. The motion is properly moved and seconded. It's all 8. It's all right. The motion is properly moved and seconded by Representative Reed. Director Butler will read the resolution into the record.
State Board of Education statutory resolution appointing Tony Kreiner interim ombudsman for public education, SR 23-8. Whereas the DC State Board of Education has authority over the appointment of the ombudsman for public education under the Ombudsman for Public Education Establishment Act of 2007, effective June 12, 2007, as a part of the Public Education Reform Amendment Act of 2007. Whereas Section 602 of the Act, DC Official Code, Section 38-531, notes that the DC State Board must appoint a new ombudsman to fill the remainder of an unexpired term within 75 days of the occurrence of the vacancy. Whereas the position of Ombudsman for Public Education became vacant on June 30th, 2023, and whereas Tony Kreiner has served district students as an Assistant Ombudsman for Public Education since November 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the DC State Board of Education appoints Tony Kreiner to the position of Interim Ombudsman for Public Education until January 24th, 2024, the remainder of the unexpired term. Be it finally resolved, the DC State Board directs the Executive Director to begin the hiring process for a permanent Ombudsman for Public Education.
All right, thank you, Director Butler. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the motion is to adopt SR 23-8. Director Butler will call the roll.
Representative Bernstadt?
Aye.
Representative Washington?
Aye.
Representative Williams?
Aye.
Representative Chang?
Aye.
Representative Goulet?
Aye.
Representative Henderson?
Aye.
Representative Reed?
Aye.
Representative Patterson?
Aye.
Vice President O'Leary?
Aye.
President Thompson?
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the members. Congratulations to our new interim ombudsman who is in the room. Now, if people want to clap, we can do claps. Okay. Now, the State Board will move to adopt a consent agenda for our ceremonial resolutions. Director Butler, please read the titles of the resolutions to be included in tonight's consent agenda.
CR 23-8, recognizing the contributions and work of Serena Hayes as Ombudsman for Public Education. CR 23-9, recognizing 2022-2023 Student Representative Lee Bernstadt. CR 23-10, honoring the late Connie Spinner.
Members, I'm actually going to ask if there are no objections that we remove the resolutions for Ombudsman Hayes and Representative Bernstadt from the consent agenda so they can actually be read aloud and we can, do all the things. So if there are no objections, I would like to remove both of those from the consent agenda. Okay. You might object later when you're like in tears. All right. All right. Well, so is there a motion to approve the single consent agenda item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there, the motion has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing no discussion, the motion is on adopting the consent agenda, the single item consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. The ayes have it and the motion carries. So, Director Butler, I'm coming back to you for the CRs. So first we have CR, oh goodness, 23 dash, that should be 9.
8.
Oh, okay.
There's an 8 and a 9.
No, I just did 8. 8 was Tony. Oh, okay, yes, 8. CR 23-8 for Miss Serena Hayes. Would you read that into the record?
Yes. State Board of Education Ceremonial Resolution recognizing the contributions and work of Serena Hayes as Ombudsman for Public Education, CR 23-8. Whereas Serena Hayes was appointed the 3rd District of Columbia Ombudsman for Public Education on January 16, 2019. Whereas Ms. Hayes is a graduate of Howard University Law School and earned a bachelor's degree in psychology, sociology, and anthropology from Washington and Lee University. Whereas Ms. Hayes has extensive experience in mediation, including facilitating large group discussion for consent decree issued after the death of Freddie Gray and receiving the 2017 Logan Charkodian Volunteer of the Year Award for exemplifying quality in the delivery of mediation. Whereas Ms. Hayes leveraged her experience in law and mediation to advocate for the rights of all children in the District of Columbia's public school during her time as Ombudsman for Public Education. Whereas under Ms. Hayes' leadership, the Office of the Ombudsman has coached thousands of individuals and groups on conflict resolution strategies and empowered families to use their voice. Whereas Ms. Hayes became a trusted resource for both families and schools, having been requested to mediate conflicts by local education agencies and provide technical assistance to schools. Whereas Ms. Hayes influenced policy and legislative change in the District of Columbia around virtual learning, special education, student discipline, safety, and strategies to improve transparency. Whereas Ms. Hayes advocated for and secured funds to expand the staff and physical space of the Office of the Ombudsman for Public Education to increase the quality and timeliness of support for district families. And whereas Ms. Hayes oversaw the launch of the Special Education Hub, which is committed to demystifying special education in the District of Columbia by equipping families with tools, information, and support they need to make informed decisions to guide their child's learning. Now therefore be it resolved that the District of Columbia State Board of Education honors former Ombudsman for Public Education, Serena Hayes, on the 19th day of July in the year 2023 for her outstanding service and leadership to the District of Columbia.
Members, is there any discussion? Okay, I saw Vice President O'Leary first, Representative Patterson second. I'm going to go Representative Reed and Representative. Y'all, no, y'all are going to confuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard enough.
The Special Ed Hub is something that is going to continue to grow and service our students. And I just want to thank Ombudsman Hayes for starting that Special Ed Hub, which is of extreme importance for everyone that lives in the District of Columbia.
So thank you. A quick story time. I won't be long. But I think I've said this before, but it doesn't hurt to say again. As a new state board rep, I think what 2021 was kind of when we first started, so we were all virtual. And literally every bad story about education was landing in my email box. And you were intercepting some very poignant emails that I was sending back to folks. And you immediately reached out and you were like, I'm here to help. Like, that's my job. And I was like, okay, so there's one thing for somebody to say, like, I'm here to help, but the effectiveness. I never had any family call back and say that whatever happened at your office, because a lot of the information is confidential, didn't work, didn't move towards a solution, which I think is just very beneficial to families in Ward 8 who oftentimes get the runaround, standing in long lines, calling phone numbers that don't work, emails that aren't being answered, and to know that there was a reliable source on the other end just made things 1,000 times better, not just for me as a rep, but for families. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and all the best on your next endeavors.
Just want to say that Ombudsman Hayes has always been helpful anytime I've reached out since I've been on the board and before, and also want to note that she is a Ward 5 resident, and Ward 5 is very proud of her and thankful for your service. Thank you.
Ward 5 can have one. Is there further discussion? Okay, I saw a silent thank you. I also would like to thank Serena. I know that there are many things we see and there are many things we don't see, and somehow magically it all gets done. And so thank you very much for all of the support you've provided to our families, both like those that have needed the discretion, those that have needed maybe like a loud whisper to some of our other comrades in education and public service, and then all the opportunities you all as an office have gone out to raise your voice to let people know that you are there to do those things. So thank you. So seeing no further discussion, I am actually going to go to Director Butler for the roll call vote.
Representative Bernstein?
Aye.
Representative Washington?
Aye.
Representative Williams?
Aye.
Representative Chang?
Aye.
Representative Goulet?
Aye.
Representative Henderson?
Aye.
Representative Reed?
Aye.
Representative Patterson?
Aye.
Vice President O'Leary?
Aye.
President Thompson?
Aye.
The vote passed unanimously.
Ooh, mic on. All right, thank you. Now, we are on to CR. It should be 23-9. Perfect. Okay. And this one is for Representative Bernstad. Director Butler, please read the resolution into the record.
State Board of Education ceremonial resolution recognizing 2022 and 2023 student representative Lee Bernstad, CR 23-9. Whereas the DC State Board of Education is committed to advancing academic outcomes for all students in DC, regardless of their background, whereas student voice and representation is a critical component of the student board's work. Whereas the Student Advisory Committee was established in March 2015 to provide a voice for all students in the District of Columbia and to promote communication between the State Board, district students, and other education stake decision makers. Whereas the SAC has met monthly to discuss education policy issues of importance to students in the District of Columbia, convene speakers and presenters to share insights and engage their respective students at district high schools to advance the work of the State Board. Whereas Lee Bernstad, who graduated this year from Capital City Public Charter School, was first appointed as a State Board student representative in 2022. Whereas Ms. Bernstad championed equity for the LGBTQ+ community, serving as a member of her school's Queer and Trans Student Alliance, as well as co-organized DC's first citywide LGBTQ+ Pride Prom. Whereas a distinguished debater, Bernstad, who won 5th place at the 2023 Washington Urban National Debate Championship, was awarded $2,000 2023 National Debater of the Year and gave back to her community by coaching middle school students on the functional skills of debate and international relations through the Washington Urban Debate League. Whereas Ms. Bernstadt exhibited exceptional student leadership to the SAC, helping facilitate improvement to the board's processes to become more formally included, to more formally include student perspectives, to advance student voice, as well as cultivating a genuinely inclusive space for students around the city to be heard in solving the district's most pressing education issues. Whereas Ms. Bernstadt showed a consistent dedication to public meetings, great empathy for all members of the public testifying before the board, and a depth of scholarship and insight on a wide range of issues pushing for equity in DC's education system. Whereas Ms. Bernstadt served on the Bylaws Committee as well as the State Board's Education Standards Committee, which valued her contribution towards the passage of DC's revised social studies standards. Whereas among Ms. Bernstadt's accomplishments and accolades, she was presented on the importance of student voice at the 2023 National Association of State Boards of Education Conference, was awarded one of the 2023 Coca-Cola Scholars, and was the 2023 U.S. Presidential Scholars semifinalist, selected as an intern in Senator Chris Murray's office, and accepted her invitation to join Harvard University's class of 2027. Now therefore be it resolved that the D.C. State Board recognizes Liv Bernstadt's contributions and exemplary service to D.C. on behalf of fellow students, and be it finally resolved that the State Board wishes Ms. Bernstadt the best of luck in her studies at Harvard University and all future endeavors.
All right, let's do the cue for discussion. I'm gonna stop looking over here first. I'm gonna start here. Any discussion? No hands? One. I think, do you want to go first or you want to go last? Do you want to go first? Okay. Representative Williams. Anyone else ready to get in the queue? Okay, then I'm going to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Representative Williams.
All right. Lee, it has been a privilege to get to know you and to first present to you when you were on this board before I was, and to go through the process of seeing you apply everything you do up here in action. So I'll kind of keep it short, I guess, if I can. Yeah, to see you kind of in class and on the board was really special for me this past year. And there's not too many students that I've seen really come to this work so genuinely with such a deep thirst for knowledge and change. And I just want to say that that's really special, and I hope you continue that in your journey as you move into higher education next year. So thank you.
I'll be much shorter. If you didn't get a chance to hear Lee's salutatorian speech at the Capital City graduation, in the resolution it says the State Board wishes Ms. Bernstadt the best of luck. She doesn't need any luck. If you listen to that speech, her future is ahead of her, and even though I'm Irish and luck is supposedly part of my whole being, luck won't have anything to do with her success in her future. It's been wonderful working with you as a co-worker on the board, and the nice thing about the board and the students on the committee is they are not treated as anything less than equal members of the board, and her input on everything that she's done on the board has been fabulous, and it will be hard to be replaced. We love you.
I'll pick up where Dr. O'Leary left, naming the weight of student voice, which very much has been shaped by Representative Bernstein and made possible by your advocacy to make sure that we are always thinking about students first, which is why I think all of us are up here. All of your accomplishments aside, first, personally, will very much miss you next year, and want to highlight, I think, a particular skill of yours that we are going to miss. I think you, over the 2 years that you've been working with us, have not only named problems, right, and raised the issues, but also proposed solutions and followed through on those solutions and wrestled with what is the best solution, and not been obsessed with a particular solution that you come up with, but been very open to listening to, better ideas, change those ideas, and keep pushing forward the thing that will actually work, and then following through to make that happen. And that is a rare skill that you may not get a lot of opportunities to foster in academia, especially at the school you're going to, which I say with love. And while you're there and learn how to further critique problems and diagnose problems, I hope you won't lose that talent of yours to actually cut through the noise and make solutions happen. And I'm going to really miss that on this board in the coming years.
It's hard to follow Representative Chang. But what I will say, Liv, is that one thing I think that has always impressed me about you, I think a lot of us all come up here and get elected because we're passionate about what we do. And we bring that passion to every issue. But one thing I'll take away from how you come here every single time is how prepared you are, something that I can get better at. There has never, ever been a working meeting or anything else that you didn't come into that meeting prepared to engage and advocate in a way that I literally had to sit back in my chair sometimes and go, okay, let me rethink some of my thoughts. So I appreciate your passion and your preparedness. That sets a standard for all students and for us adults as well, the ones who have been here a long time and said we went through all these schools and stuff like that, what you're about to do, to be prepared to really fight for the things that you want to. Yes, be compassionate and be everything else, but be prepared. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for teaching me that lesson.
Is there further discussion? Taya. Representative Washington.
Ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. This is why I got to do the numbers. Representative Goulet.
No
and
rush.
then Representative Washington.
I'll be brief. Liv, it's been a pleasure to get to meet you, to get to know you, and been an honor to serve with you on this board. I mean, your resume, it was just incredible to hear it all spelled out in a resolution, and you're just graduating from high school. It's amazing. So I think Harvard is lucky to have you. They're the ones who lucked out by accepting you. And I was thrilled you served with me on the bylaws committee. It was great to get to work with you on that. And I will just say that someday when I see you on the news doing something amazing, I'm going to go to my grandkids and say, I served on the State Board of Education with leave. And they're going to be, I'm going to impress them because you're going to be doing something incredible. So good luck. We'll be here, and we can't wait to hear what you're doing next. And I think it's going to be, whatever it is, it's going to be something really special because you made such a difference on the board here. So thanks for getting to serve with us here, and good luck.
I don't know how to go after all that discussion, and if I say too much, I'm going to start crying too. But Liv, you've been an amazing friend to me. Look at me. And not only an amazing friend, but an amazing role model. I want to echo what some of the past members were saying with you elevating student voice. You've inspired me and every member on the SAC and every student I know you've come into contact with. You just have an amazing light, and you light up every room that you go into. Harvard is definitely lucky to have you. I know you're going to be successful, and I won't let this be goodbye. I'll see you in the future, and I know you're going to have an amazing one. So, yeah, I'm losing my words, but I love you, and thank you for everything.
Okay, is there further discussion? Okay, I will say, to give you a chance to like catch your breath and not be in tears. You're probably going to end up in tears anyway, but I am not surprised that you were awarded for Debater of the Year because I think at our, I don't know if it was our last working session or the working session before, I think you sent an email. You were like, okay, I would like for the board to consider student discipline policies. And I'm like, sure, we can refer them to committee because the committees are doing their work plans now. And so I don't know if I called you or you called me, but we talked about it and you were like, no, it has to be and all the things. And I was like, I don't think she realizes, A, this is not a debate, and B, like she's actually already won, like it's fine. Like I was like, I had already said yes, okay, like 3 times, but because to Representative Patterson's point, you are so prepared, I think you wanted to make sure I understood like how important it was to you. I know Vice President O'Leary said you don't need luck, but one definition of luck is kind of like when preparation meets opportunity. So I have no doubt that you will be very lucky in life. I don't think any of us ever have success without it. So best wishes, congratulations, and all the luck to you.
Thank you all very much. I did not get emotional at graduation. I did not get emotional at any of the other big senior events, but like this, I think part of the transition is really hard because this is such a special, oh my gosh, hold on. This is just such a special position that I've been able to hold, and I'm very grateful for all the gifts that the State Board has given me. The biggest one, I think, is learning not to be intimidated because it's really hard to be in a room full of adults, especially when I first started and everyone was telling me that I had big shoes to fill, as if I didn't already know. But I think that that's been a really important skill that I developed, and I'm excited for all the student reps after me to develop. The people that I've met on the board have been just incredible, and especially the teachers that testify to and work with the board. Every month has just made me super excited to enter this field and continue to explore it. I'm really proud to be a product of DC schools, and I hope that, you know, in even just some minuscule way, I've helped make that a little bit better for the folks that come after me. I have to thank a lot of people, so I had to write down a little list so I didn't forget. The members of the board when I first joined: Emily Gasoy, Alistair Chang, Ruth Wattenberg, Fraser O'Leary, Zach Parker, Jessica Sutter, Ebony Rose Thompson, Carlene Reed, and Jock Patterson, who really helped me kind of figure out how to do this stuff. It's really, really confusing once you first join. The new members: Eric Goulet, Brandon Best, Robert Henderson, and especially Ben Williams, because I spent so much time with him this year in the classroom, here, just literally everywhere. Sometimes more than I'd like, but you know, I'm grateful for him nonetheless. I would be remiss if I didn't thank all our staff, also including John Paul Hayworth and Alex Jew, who really helped make my transition into the board easy and dealt with me asking a lot of them all the time, because if you don't push for things, they don't happen. But I understand that can be annoying. It's always my goal to be annoying and get things done. I especially also want to thank separately Dr. Darren Fleischer, who has just made my time on the board a blast. He's helped me figure out a lot of things professionally, because that can be a really confusing part of like entering the workforce. Is how do you introduce yourself to people? How do you network? And he helped me figure that out. The kids on the students on the student advisory committee for always, you know, showing up. Like, that's a lot to ask of someone after a full day of school. And they always engaged authentically, especially this year as we returned in person and we grew in capacity, which has been really exciting. And then I have to also thank a few student reps, namely Sky Lee and Juliana Lopez, who served with me for my first term, Alexander O'Sullivan, who served right before me and who kind of helped me make the transition, and then of course Taya, who has just been a joy to serve with. We presented together at the NASB conference, but have just worked together a lot this year, and so I'm very excited to see what they do next. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'm going to have Executive Director Butler call the roll.
Representative Bernstadt,
Aye.
Representative Washington,
Aye.
Representative Williams,
Aye.
Representative Chang,
Aye.
Representative Goulet,
Aye.
Representative Henderson,
Aye.
Representative Reed, Representative Patterson,
Aye.
Vice President O'Leary,
Aye squared.
President Thompson.
Aye.
The resolution has passed by unanimous vote, and I would just say, my interview for the state board, they told me I had to interview with students, and it was like, we have no control over the questions they're going to ask you. And I remember telling at the time President Sutter, those questions were harder than the questions I got from the state board members and the staff. She's like, well, there are our questions, and our students are really invested. And I was so glad to be interviewed by Representative Bernstadt and Representative Washington. So I knew at that time, I was like, oh, this is, they really here. They not just in figure only. So congratulations.
All right. Congratulations. And thank you, members, for all of your kind words, but also bearing with the changes in the, this is why we pull things from the consent agenda on occasion. All right. Are there any announcements or comments before we adjourn? All right. Hearing none, I want to thank all the members for their time and engagement tonight. As a reminder to our viewing public, the State Board has an adjusted schedule in August, with our public meeting convening on, our public meeting convening on August 20th, our working session, there's a script and it's wrong. At our working session on August 2nd at 5 p.m., the board will not have a public meeting in August and will convene for the next time for the public on September 20th at 5:30 p.m. here in the old council chambers. With no further business before the board, I would now gleefully entertain a motion to adjourn.
One quick thing, President Thompson. I just want to make sure that we didn't forget to vote on the CR for Connie Spinner.
It was part of the consent agenda.
Okay, so we covered that? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
All right, I'm looking for the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All right, perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it, and this meeting of the District of the State Board of Education is adjourned at 7:18 p.m.